Lots of people in American jails are here for drug use. And that's ironic because the people who make the laws and enforce them, many of them admit they use drugs.
Which of you are ready to admit to having used marijuana in the past? Senator Kerry, yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes. Edward?
Yes.
The audience applauds.
And I didn't like it and didn't inhale.
I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
Everyone laughs. Yet these same politicians oversee a system that does this. Drug raids like this one happen in America more than 100 times every day.
I do.
Neil Franklin once led such raids.
You've locked up hundreds of people for drugs?
Absolutely, and have been responsible for thousands being arrested.
You felt good about it?
Yeah, we really thought these drugs made people evil.
But 10 years ago, Franklin decided that drugs, even hard drugs, do much less harm to Americans than the drug war.
Drugs can be and are in many cases problematic, but the policies that we have in place to prohibit their use are 10 times more problematic.
Conducting drug raids is one thing that changed his mind. On this raid, a SWAT team broke into this family's house, shot their dog. Once inside, they didn't find any drugs. The owner was just charged with possessing drug paraphernalia.
We just don't end up with dogs being shot. We end up with kids being shot. We end up with search warrants being served on the wrong home, and innocent people on the other side of the door thinking that they are protecting their home.
We should be kicking down more doors.
Paul Chabot was a White House drug czar advisor under President Bush and Clinton.
They're not kicking the door of somebody smoking a doobie on their couch. They're kicking the door of somebody who's a violent person with a known history to be dangerous.
When they get it right, sometimes they make mistakes, terrorize people.
Because that accident happens should not be the reason that we do away with the program.
Do away with it, says Franklin. It didn't stop drug use, but it created violence.
Tens of thousands of people are dying.
Not because they get high on drugs, but because when something's illegal, it's sold on the black market. And that causes crime. Drug dealers can't call the cops if someone tries to steal their supply, so they arm themselves to the teeth and form gangs.
We have the violence of these gangs competing for market share, and people get hurt.
Especially kids. Drug gangs constantly look for new recruits.
Some of these gangs have better recruitment programs than Fortune 500 companies. They know what to say to kids.
He demonstrated how they recruit kids.
Check this out. Look what I got on my feet, man. Wouldn't you like a pair of these? Just run right over there to Foot Locker, get yourself a pair. When you get up, come back and show me them, man. Okay, kid comes back, man, they looking good, man. Wouldn't you like to be able to buy a pair of them every week? Man, if you hang out with me, this is what you could be. You could have this.
A few days later, the dealer sees the kid again.
What, you dissing me or what, man? You know you owe me.
Well, you offered me sneakers.
You got my $120? Oh, you don't? Okay, well, here's what you got to do. You hold this for me. That's all you got to do for me, all right?
Just stand here.
Just stand here and let me know when 5-0 comes, and you'll get to keep the sneakers. I got you.
And if drugs were legal, people assume there would be more of that.
No, so you don't understand. It is the policy of prohibition that causes that environment. And we don't have these kids on the corner, you know, I got a fifth of Jack Daniels here for you. You want that?
Jack Daniels is sold by businesses in safe, well-lit places. There's no violence here because this is legal. But there used to be violence in places like this.
Gangsterism was a natural sequel.
Violent crime is why America ended its 9 years of alcohol prohibition.
Al Capone, commissar of vice and corruption.
We created organized crime. Al Capone.
Organized crime existed well before Prohibition.
But much less of it. Here's the murder rate about 80 years ago. It rose when alcohol was banned, dropped when it became legal again.
If we were to do away with our drug laws and just sort of legitimize narcotic use in this country by saying let adults do what they do, we know statistically the drug usage numbers are going to skyrocket.
But we don't know that. People think were it not for drug laws, drug abuse would be rampant. But Portugal decriminalized all drugs 10 years ago, and the number of abusers did not skyrocket.
Actually, they have. In Portugal, which people often talk about today as a success, it's actually a blatant failure.
We went to Portugal. He's just wrong.
We had a huge problem with drug use.
This man is Portugal's drug czar.
We had around 100,000 people hooked on heroin.
15 years ago, heroin users shot up in the streets and junkies set up tent cities. Then, instead of doing what we've done, they tried something different. They decriminalized every drug. Crack, heroin, you name it.
Is legalization. We have the most liberal model in the world.
Drug use is treated more like a parking ticket than a crime. People caught with drugs, like this man found with hash, get a slap on the wrist, sometimes a fine. When the law passed, did stoned people run wild in the streets, taking heroin and crack?
That's so not true.
This woman served in Portugal's parliament.
People now take a more responsible attitude towards certain drugs. There's no police after them to choose for them.
Despite that freedom, independent studies found that the number of people who say they regularly do drugs stayed about the same. And more importantly,
the numbers of addiction itself decreased a lot.
We saw this woman openly smoking a joint near some police officers. But we saw more public drinking than drug use. Drug abuse is down, say authorities, and drug crime is down.
The police forces were a little bit suspicious.
At first, this police inspector had doubts about the law, but now he says it works.
The level of conflicts on the street are reduced. Drug-related robberies are reduced. In fact, now the police are not the enemies of the consumers.
And teen drug use is down.
It brought some peace to this debate.
But in America, the drug war rages on.